Snug as a bug in a rug. This is so much comfortable than the bare metal. And I'm actually going to take this apart. It was easy to slide in anyways. Because I can. Why didn't I just do this in the right order the first time? But I'm not that smart, so. Patience is a virtue. A virtue I don't have. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Zach Does It. If this is your first time joining us, well, welcome. It's great to have you. And if you're joining us as a repeat customer, well, welcome back. I'm so excited to share even more projects with you. Over the past couple episodes, we've been applying soundproofing to Mama Miata and learning some techniques and tools that can be helpful to make that process easier. We also learned how soundproofing works and why it exists in the first place. But today's episode is going to continue in the rebuild process of the series, and we're going to start with the HVAC system. I realize that the disassembly process of the entire interior only took one episode, and I blitzed through the entire process. A lot of y'all commented and let me know that it was maybe a little rushed, and it felt like more time could have been spent talking about that process. So thank you for the feedback. The reassembly process is going to be a little bit longer. We'll take our time talking about some of the specific troubles I ran into or some of the tricks, again, that help make this process easier. Hopefully this will help you if you find yourself in a similar situation, having a completely disassembled Miata and needing to know how to put it back together, or just having some reference material to know what things look like or what order to put things back together in. That's all I've got though. Let's kick it back to past Zach, who is working on a bit of a time crunch this morning. Man, it's cold. Ow! Oh, it smells so nice in here. Okay, we are back. It is the morning. It's a Monday, so I've got about an hour. Let me check my freckles. It's got about an hour until my work day starts, so I'm going to try my best to get 2 more pieces back in the car so that we're ready to put the dash in later today. And with any luck, once we get the heater core housing in and a couple hoses reconnected up front, we should be able to try turning the car on and let the coolant flow, let it warm up a bit, and hopefully we won't have any leaks. We did take everything apart, we put all the hoses back together, but I don't know if I messed anything up along the way, so just in case, before we put the dash in, if I can get the car started and running and make sure that nothing bad happens, I think that'll be good. The downside is I won't have a temperature gauge, although I think what I could do is take the cluster, bring it in, just rest it up here, and plug in the right wires. I don't think I need the entire dash in, but we'll see. We'll see if we can plug things together. Okay. For starters, we do want to get this blower housing in. It has been cleaned. There's no mulch in it anymore. Same thing with this box. We saw that the other day. It was pretty gross. But hopefully we can get this all put back in real easy. Let's see. What's the orientation on this? Oh, there we go. I think this is about right. Ooh, I may actually need to pull the carpeting back down a bit. Where'd I put those? There it is. The 2-piece goes here, and there should be an orientation guide. Yep, that says up, that way. And I'm actually going to take this apart because I can. All right, it's probably actually easier just to get a preset up before we bring it all together. So we'll take all this back out. It was easy to slide in anyways. Well, now how did I do that? It was easy to slide in anyways. Why didn't I just do this in the right order the first time? Oh, thank God. All right, we'll put this back together. You're oriented correctly. It was easy to slide in anyways. Okay, patience. Patience is a virtue. A virtue I don't have. Okay, well, I got it in once, and I got it back out, so what am I doing wrong? Just maybe if I take the ECU plate out. Okay, if that didn't get me enough room, then I don't know what will. Okay, that is snug as a bug in a rug. It was easy to slide in anyways. Now I can put the plate back in. What? Make sure you're still aligned. You're good. Let's see. You go there. And you go there. And you plug in that. And you don't plug into that. I guess that doesn't go there. Alright, well, that must be something that goes into the dash. So we'll just ignore that for now. Come back to it later. Okay. All right. Hopefully that was the hard part. We shall see. This one does not come apart, so we do want... Ooh, actually, let's get the carpet back. a little bit up. Lose my hat. Oh, this is so much comfortable than the bare metal that we've been working on. And, you know, because I like doing things over and over and over again, we're going to peel back the carpet. Although not as much this time. All right, we're back. Well, for you, it really hasn't been that long, has it? Anyways, we're back with some hose clamps so we can finally finish putting that hose back on the heater core. And we also brought our instrument cluster up. Really, I just want this for the temperature gauge. We are about to start the car. Well, I've got to do some cooling things first, but we're going to start the car and hopefully get it up to temperature, check for leaks, otherwise make sure that everything's okay before we go ahead and put the dash back in. The worst thing that could possibly happen is we put the dash in, I put the rest of the interior together, I think I'm good to go, and one of those hoses starts leaking. Now, I tightened it as much as I felt comfortable. I tried doing a pressure test where I plugged one end up and I blew as hard as I could on the other end, and no air was able to escape, or at least I couldn't tell if any air was escaping. I guess realistically I could have done the soapy water test. You know, you put some soap in a water, you put it around the thing you think might be leaking, and then you just look for bubbles. But I'm not that smart, so all that should be good. But just in case, I want to get the car running, I want to bring it up to temperature, I want to let the fluid and the coolant flush through the system and circulate a bit, and hopefully we won't have any leaks. If we don't, well, then we're on the final stretch. We've got to put the dash in, finish putting the interior together, and we'll be able to finally go out on the road to enjoy it. Actually, now we'll have to go back out so we can get temperatures up to the levels that we need them at for things like the oil flush, the trans fluid change, and taking care of a bunch of those other things that we weren't able to get to in the mechanical check just yet. So let's go do that. Let's get those hose clamps on. Let's come back, turn the car on, hopefully. Hopefully it'll turn over after sitting for 2.5 weeks, and pray that there's no leaks. All right, we have the heater core hoses and clamps are on. The rest of the cooling hoses are on. Again, these are the original ones that came with the car when I bought it. We've got an extra pack inside just in case there is a leak, or if maybe one of the hoses I inspected isn't as good as I thought it was. But for now, it is time to add the coolant. Now, I went with a non-diluted mixture. In fact, it was kind of hard to find because almost everything came in a pre-mixed 50-50 blend. And now that I'm saying that, I realize I don't have distilled water. And I need that. In order to make my 50-50 blend, I need distilled water. Let me go do that real quick. Did you miss me? So, I've got my distilled water, and like I was saying before, I didn't get the 50-50 premix because I want to do that on my own. Actually, it's just easy to do your own mixture. Plus, I actually need 6.3 quarts of coolant, and that would mean I'd have to get 2 bottles of coolant, and when the price breakdown happens, it's actually cheaper just to get $1 distilled water and the non-diluted version of the coolant. And really mixing it yourself isn't hard at all, so why am I going to pay the premium for someone else to do the 50-50 mix for me? Well, after forgetting to get the distilled water a couple times, it actually would have cost me less to go that route. But I digress. I won't make that mistake again. Or if I do, I'll forget about this time so I can say that I won't do it again the next time. That's how that works, right? So, what do I know? Well, I know that I need 6.3 quarts of coolant. And that's specified in the beginning of the chapter on routine maintenance, so I got that, check. What I also know is that I only need a 50-50 mix. So the easiest way to do this, aside from getting another bucket and measuring everything out, is to actually just pour this first, make sure that I have half of the system full of coolant, and then I can fill the rest up with distilled water. And I know what I'll be doing is bringing down the concentration of my coolant. So I'll start with 100% coolant, and then I'll top it off with distilled water. And as long as I don't have any leaks, I will end up with a good 50-50 mix just like I want. So let's do that. Okay, so we have the coolant in, we've got the distilled water in, we are just about ready. There's one last step before we turn the car on, and that is to turn this to maximum heat. And that's all we do, right? Well, unfortunately, because the dash is disassembled, this actually didn't change any controls. So instead, I'm going to trace which one of these is affected by the temperature gauge, which it turns out it's this one. And then, based on what I remember from when I took it apart, it's this control piece over here. The good news is I'm going from one extreme to the other, so I don't have to find an intermediate value. I just need to find out which of the two extremes is full heat. As I move this, it gets shorter. So in its elongated position, it's going to be maximum heat. And it attaches to this. Ah, perfect. So it's the internal. I can see the flap moving on the inside. All of these must be for airflow and where it's going, but temperature-wise, it should be set on maximum heat. We do want to see if we can get the instrument cluster in. That way we can track the temperature and turn the car off if it looks like it's going to overheat. So let's do that real quick. All right, so I was hopeful that I'd actually be able to plug in the instrument cluster without the dash, but none of these plugs match up with any of the plugs that are currently available to me. So instead of going through the full process of making sure that we get out all the air bubbles, what I'm actually going to do is two separate steps. The first step, we're going to turn the car on and let it run for a little bit, just 30 seconds, a minute, long enough for us to know whether or not we have a leak, or at least a bad leak. After that, if there's nothing obvious leaking, then I'll go ahead, I'll reassemble the dash, I'll put everything back in, and we'll finish doing everything we need to clear all of the air out of the cooling system. So just realize that in this case, it's better to be safe than sorry, so we won't go through the entire process of getting all the air out. We'll just make sure that there's enough coolant to keep the car cool or the engine cool for just a few seconds while we run it. Okay, the battery is in. Let's see if accessories work. Did I hear the fuel pump? Ooh, I might have to put the dash in. It may be because of things like, I guess, airbag sensors, or some of these plugs need to be grounded out before I've got to put the dash in. I can't check for leaks. Well, here goes nothing. All the people on the forums were lying to me. They said that they were driving without a dash in because it was busted or something. They were trying to figure rattle out. Other people didn't have the instrument cluster in because...
You have to push the clutch in.
Oh, I did. I had it. Yeah. Well, as you can see, past Zak wasn't quite able to get the car started and pressure test the HVAC system. And in hindsight, I think it kind of makes sense. I mean, the dash has a very large wiring harness with a lot of connectors, some of which were actually necessary to connect to the instrument cluster in the first place, or things like the ignition and airbag and a bunch of other things, all of which ultimately then connect those instrument panels and controls with the equipment and sensors that they need to be attached to so that the car knows that it can start and run and do everything that it needs to. So, unfortunately, we won't be able to do the pressure test and make sure that there are no leaks before installing the dash. Instead, past Zak, in the next episode, will be taking a gamble and reinstalling the dash and the steering column, the instrument cluster, and everything else that it appears he needs to get Mama Miata running and do that pressure test. We're not going to be able to save time by testing everything before we finally reassemble it all, but with any luck, things will go back together without an issue and it won't matter. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the journey so far, or this episode in particular, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know that you're enjoying the journey with me. And if you're on the fence about subscribing, well, I'm on the road to 100 subscribers, and I would love to bring you along on the journey as I start more and more exciting projects. If you do so and hit the bell notification icon, you will know when each new episode launches, and you'll be able to track along as each new project comes up. But that's all I've got for this episode. I can't wait to see you in the next one.